Shadow the Hedgehog is a 2005 platformer developed and published by Sega as part of the Sonic the Hedgehog series. The game was subject to a lot of criticism, mainly due to the introduction of guns and unnecessary swearing.
Damn it.
That being said, the standalone Shadow game was also loved and adored by many fans, including myself, who, as a child, thought just about every aspect of this game that people hated was really cool. But almost 18 years later, will I still love this game? Or is it simply a case of childhood nostalgia? Let's find out. Right off the bat, the game makes sure to imply it's going to be a lot darker than any other Sonic game you've played before. This isn't your little brother's Sonic game. Shadow starts off with an absolute banger of an opening cutscene. Still to this day, I get pumped when I'm treated to this song again. Seriously, this has to be one of the coolest intros to a game that I've ever seen, especially for a platformer. The scene depicts Shadow riding around the city, accompanied by a freaking rifle, beating up his enemies, which include the freaking military. And at the end of it all, my guy is holding a gun as Sonic falls lifelessly to the ground. That's a pretty crazy start to a game like this. Anyway, I know I'm spending a lot of time in the opening, but dude, it's one of my favorite parts of the game. Moving on though, the main menu screen is okay. When you select an option, it makes a gunshot sound, which is cool but hilarious for a Sonic game. It doesn't really have many modes you can choose from. You just get single player, 2-player, and my personal favorite, options. But I'll let that slide because that's not typically something I look for or expect from a Sonic game. As a side note, I will say the options screen will allow you to play back the entire soundtrack at any time, which is pretty cool. I mean, I Am is a personal favorite of mine. I even have it downloaded on Apple Music. By the way, in the select screen, they have little quotes from Shadow and Company in the background, but if you look carefully, a lot of these are misspelled or just terrible grammar. I don't know how something like this could have just gone by undetected. But now, let's get into the actual game. Due to events that happened in previous iterations of the series, the story mainly revolves around Shadow, who has amnesia, trying to recover his memories and find his purpose in life. Because of this, most of the levels will allow you to choose different missions to take, which determine your path in the game. These paths branch out to different levels that you wouldn't play otherwise. This was really cool, and something I really miss about the old adventure era of Sonic. Think about it. Adventure 1 has you play as each character in their own unique story. Adventure 2 has good and evil storylines. Heroes had storylines divided into 4 different teams. And then Shadow, which basically allows you to determine your own fate. Please Sega, we forgive you for Sonic 06. Just bring this style back. We miss it. Anyway, the paths are as follows. Neutral, which typically just requires you to get the ring at the end without following any orders from any of the characters involved in this specific area. The second is Hero, in which you will usually be guided by a member of the Sonic team. Most of the time, they will involve defeating a certain number of black arms or doing a task that progresses the story. Oddly enough, occasionally helping Eggman will be the hero mission, because he's lesser of the two evils to Black Doom. Now, most of the dark missions you undergo will involve Black Doom. Will instruct you to usually defeat a predetermined amount of gun soldiers, or in many other cases, fulfill some other dark deed. Again, sometimes the dark missions will be led by Eggman, who is still the villain when compared to anybody else in the series.
You know what they say, the more the merrier. You know what they say, the more the merrier. You know what they say, the more the merrier. You know what they say, the more the merrier. You know what they say, the more...
Although there are only 3 missions per most of the levels, there are 5 different paths that you can take. Dark, semi-dark, neutral, semi-hero, and hero. Each of these span 6 different levels and have 2 separate endings, depending on if you take good or evil route in the last level. What this means is that there are 10 endings you can achieve. In my opinion, this is way too much. Many of the endings are only slightly different from the others, with minimal dialogue change. Also, if you're aiming to get all 10 endings, which, spoiler alert, you will in order to get the last story unlocked, you will have to play through many of the same stages several times. And out of the 10 endings, there's only 3 possible final bosses: Sonic, Eggman, and Black Doom. So you'll have to fight them each a few times as well. Only thing varying is slightly different maps, and I mean slightly. But we'll talk about these a bit more later. Now, being the completionist that I am, I went through every possible ending to get the last story. Meaning, yes, I played through Westopolis 10 times. By the time that 10th playthrough came around, I was beating the level in 45 seconds. Not kidding. Which honestly is pretty close to an average runtime for a Sonic Frontiers level, but not for this game. That being said, if you just want to breeze through the game, go for one ending and call it a day, you could easily just play every level on neutral, spam Chaos Control, and you'll be karate chopping Eggman's neck in 45 minutes flat. But on the flip side, I spent about 25 hours completing the game to its entirety. That's pretty damn long, especially when you're playing through the same levels and bosses over and over and over again. I have to say though, you would think doing this would be a massive pain in the ass, but I thoroughly had a great time for 98% of my playthrough. Running around as Shadow with a freaking AR is just cool. I don't care how old you are. If you're a Sonic fan, you're going to really enjoy this game. It's not often we get to see a darker, edgier side to our favorite games, but running around dystopian-like maps and literally shooting military as a hedgehog is just, well, it's something you only get once in a lifetime.
Well done, Shadow.
Shadow plays like any other Sonic game, running at lightning fast speeds, bouncing off springs, doing loop-de-loops, but the aspect of having guns just somehow makes that even more fun. For me at least. Let me know how you guys feel about it. But that being said, I don't understand who they were marketing this game for. Now, it's not a secret, especially back in 2005, the primary demographic for Sonic games was children. So you add guns, killing military, hunting down the president, and some light swearing in the mix? I mean, granted, The only swearing Shadow will do is damn and the occasional hell, but boy does he love to say damn a lot.
Well done, Shadow.
Damn it. Now let's see the humans try to retaliate. Damn it. Damn it.
Now 10-year-old me loved this and thought Shadow was an absolute badass. But adult me, okay, I'd be lying to say I didn't think it was kinda cool still.
Where's that damn fourth Chaos Emerald?
But seriously, it's just not something a 30-year-old Call of Duty fan would pick up without previous experience in the franchise, and I have to imagine many parents of 8-year-olds weren't thrilled with kids playing this, but hey man, I enjoyed it, so that's all I care about. Now while there was a lot of greatness in the game, I do have to point out there are many flaws here, at least from my playthrough. The homing attack can be super awkward. Sometimes it works perfectly, better than previous iterations even, but a lot of the time, and I mean a lot, you will fall off the edge of the platform to your death, and it will be no fault of your own. This happened way too many times to not bring up, and it's truly very aggravating, especially if you haven't hit checkpoint in quite some time. Not to mention the camera angle is awful at many times as well. Half the time you can't even see where you're jumping, so this happens.
Damn, not here.
Now, while the story makes you pick a side, sometimes you will run into the opposing side's forces, and it will be necessary to beat them to progress. Also, the gun soldiers and black arms will still attack you, even if you're on their side. This forces you to dodge, or in many cases, beat them up too. There will also be times where you do a hero mission, and the next level, Black Tomb will be there acting like you didn't just directly disobey him, and vice versa for the hero team. This is even more apparent in some cutscenes as well. There's simply no continuity throughout a large portion of the story. As you can tell, I typically don't get too much into the storyline in these reviews, but let's just go over what I thought was the worst level in the game. Lost Impact. Damn, this level is just a nightmare. While all the levels in Shadow are lengthy in comparison to modern Sonic, this takes the crown. I legit spent almost 30 minutes here trying to find all 36 artificial chaos, and I still only found 27. This level is a maze of nightmares, haunting me to this day. To be honest, I could have looked up a YouTube video, but by that point I was so tired of the level, I just said screw it and finished with the dark ending. Thankfully, I still needed a semi-hero ending at this point, so I skipped this level on my next run. On the other hand, Cosmic Fall has to be one of my favorites. The arc falling to pieces as you jump from platform to platform in the middle of space is incredibly aesthetic, and the music here really hypes me up as well. I know it's probably not a popular pick for the best level in the game, but we're all about honesty here, and this is my favorite. So tell me, what are your favorite and least favorite stages in Shadow the Hedgehog? Again, to complete the game, you will have to attain all 10 endings. Typically in the darker endings, you will fight Sonic and Diablon, with varying maps depending on which ending you go for. The same for Eggman in neutral endings, and Black Doom for the hero ones. At least you would think. Eggman stays very consistent for the 4 most neutral leaning endings, those being Semi-Hero Dark, Semi-Dark Hero, and both neutrals. And may I mention the worst design of an Eggman final boss in history. Not only is it just odd, but Eggman legit has built in a shadow power-up and multiple ways for you to destroy him into his own machine. Eggman deserves to die in this ending if you ask me. But Black Doom is the final boss for the Dark Hero ending, because as Shadow explains, nobody tells him what to do, not even Black Doom. You know, I was about to talk down on that, but it actually makes a lot more sense than some of the other endings, so we'll give it a slight pass.
The city don't forget. The Black Arms will rise again.
The Hero Dark ending, however, is another story entirely. This is the closest to pure hero you can go without being an absolute saint throughout the game, and it ends with you beating Sonic to a pulp, claiming that he's not siding with Black Doom, but he's siding with whoever wants to take down Sonic. What? How is this a hero ending? You know, as stupid as that ending is, it's still a lot better than modern Shadow stuff. I mean, at least the rivalry between him and Sonic is there, so I guess I'll take it, but I just think it could have been a neutral ending, or even as far up as Semi-Dark. The Sonic fight is also probably the hardest of the 3 main bosses. None of them are difficult per se, but it does take quite a long time to finish Diablon. You just have to keep bashing this guy in the head for 5 to 7 minutes. It gets pretty tedious. Once you finish all these, however, you will unlock the last story. This in some ways redeems the lack of cohesiveness throughout the story prior, but also completely negates all that came before in your 20+ hours of playing this game. As Sonic, Eggman, and Black Doom all appear in the beginning moments of the cutscene, as if they hadn't just been massacred or defeated moments prior. Talk about spending your time efficiently.
The professor wasn't.
Black Doom explains that Shadow was created by him, using his blood and Professor Gerald, Eggman's grandfather, in exchange for the Chaos Emeralds. Further explaining that Shadow is actually a part of Black Doom. Doom then proceeds to freeze everybody, except for Shadow because he's somehow impervious, prompting the final stage, the last way. This level is really fun, but also completely identical to a previous level called Final Haunt. Well, the only slight difference is there's a 10-minute time limit, and there's also dead ends that can only be bypassed by Chaos Control. So you have to constantly beat up the Black Arms forces to build your Chaos Control meter to bypass these dead ends. And you have to do this about 3 or 4 times before the timer runs out. It's honestly easier than it sounds. I think I did it in 6 or 7 minutes. Finishing the last way brings you to the final boss of the game, Devil Doom.
And yet you defy me. So be it.
Although this boss isn't excruciatingly difficult, it is without a doubt the hardest boss in the game. Just like any other Super Sonic or Super Shadow fight, you gain speed and power, which makes for an extremely fun endgame. But you also lose rings at a fairly consistent pace, and if you lose all of your rings, game over. When Doom uses Chaos Control, he will warp to the opposite side of the map, and you will need to quickly hit the green ring containers with Super Shadow's Chaos Spear before your rings run out. All while avoiding the debris from the city, which forms a sort of barrier between you and Devil Doom. Your objective will be to hit Doom's eye, which will be constantly moving when it's hit. You're allowed to use Chaos Control, Chaos Blast, and Chaos Spear to defeat him, making for a thrilling and, again, very fun final boss. Honestly, I do think this is one of the better final bosses in the Sonic game. Let me know how you guys felt about it, if you made it this far.
Impossible. I am the supreme being that rules this universe. I am the immortal life form. I am the ultimate power.
But when all is said and done, Shadow uses Chaos Control to throw the comet towards the Eclipse Cannon, annihilating it. And Shadow then vows to move on from his past. The end. So, we talked a lot about the good and the bad of Shadow the Hedgehog. But as always, let's wrap it up with my personal opinion of the game almost 18 years later. Although there were many that hate this game, some even calling it the beginning of the Dark Ages for the Sonic franchise, I have to say, I thoroughly enjoyed my time revisiting this game. Sure, playing through the story 10 times to effectively unlock the only true ending, it was quite tedious and at times very aggravating. The majority of the time though, I was very excited to get off my 9-to-5 job and pick up where I left off. Overall, Shadow the Hedgehog is a great game. Silly and objectively controversial, sure. But if you decide to pick this game up for yourself, whether for your first time or to relive your childhood nostalgia, I don't think you regret it. I would love to see a remaster, remake, or even better, a complete reimagining of the game on modern consoles. I know us OG fans would still make it worth your while, Sega.
For a brighter future. What do you say, Commander?
Excellent idea, Mr. President.